So I thought I'll talk about the Google announcement that happened on Wednesday, because it was, well, one of my followers on Twitter said that, I was going to do a video on it. I wasn't planning on it, but I think it's probably not a bad idea for me to do one. So I do have a Bruce Squat, 500ml of tea. And what we'll do is we'll talk about what was released and then go from there. So the first thing that was that Google announced was the 2013 Nexus 7. What I'll do is I'll run through the specs and then we'll actually sort of like do a breakdown of what it actually was and then go from there. So specs wise, 1920 by 1200 display, 323 pixels per inch. A Qualcomm Snapdragon S4 Pro 1.5 GHz processor. Adreno 320 GPU, 802.11 GNN, that's dual band as well, Bluetooth 4.0, 2 gigs of RAM, 16 gigs or 32 gigs onboard storage, 5 megapixel rear facing camera, 1.2 megapixel front facing camera, 5.1 virtual surround sound, 114 by 200 by 8.65 millimeters, 290 grams, and a 3950 milliamp hour battery, which should last about 9 hours. In terms of pricing, 16 gig model Wi-Fi is $229, the 32 gig version is $269, and the 64 gig LTE version is $249, and it should be available in the US from July 30th. So let's talk about the display then, because the display is quite exciting, quite interesting. So it's a 7-inch 1920 by 1200 display, 323 pixels per inch, which is damn good. It's actually better than the iPad Mini. The iPad Mini's display is pretty shit, actually. I mean, the old Nexus 7, or the current Nexus 7 even, already blew the iPad one away. The iPad Mini one is 1024 by 768, and that's only got a 63 pixels per inch density, and it's pretty shit. So it's really, really interesting because the Nexus 7 as an overall thing is shipped about 7 million devices. So 7 million Nexus 7s have been shipped, and it is the most popular Android tablet on the market. As a device that was primarily built for developers, I mean, the Nexus brand was always for developers, and yet it's still the most popular Android tablet around. Not even, the Amazon Fire can't get to it. Even some of the first Android tablets that came out, they can get, like the Motorola Zoom and stuff like that, they can't get to it. Even like the Playbook and stuff like that, it's nowhere near as close to what the Nexus 7 is in terms of 7-inch tablet. And the 7-inch tablet market, the Nexus 7 pretty much rules the roost, even in terms of the iPad Mini, because the iPad Mini's shockingly bad. But in terms of the display's effing amazing. It's got a 30% wider range of colours as well. And it's also an IPS screen, so which means you get better colour and things like that, and greater viewing angles as well, which is quite cool. New addition is the 5 megapixel rear facing camera, and that's pretty good. It's something that the Nexus, I think, should have had in the first place. Nexus 7 should have had in the first place. But it's nice they've got that addition in there, really. Battery life is interesting. It's got a lower milliamp hour battery, but longer battery life compared to the old one. So 9 hours of HD playback and 10 hours of web browsing, which is really, really not bad. I mean, that's pretty much a working day. My current Nexus 7, this bad boy over here, lasts me a full day if I use it all day. So if I take this to work and I use it in a load of meetings and stuff, it lasts about a day, and then I have to charge it up at the end of the day. It's still got a little bit of juice to mess around with in the evening if you want to, while you're watching TV or something, which is good. But it's not, the battery life's it's not as good as I'd like it to be. I mean, the iPad battery life is still pretty shit as well, but a day's worth of use, I suppose, isn't bad. But for a device that's that big, you kind of expect it to last a little bit more than that. Especially my iPad 2, that used to last a week before, and that was like heavy use as well. It used to last a week. And then when we switched to these IPS panels and these really high definition, high pixel density panels, they rape the battery life like nobody's business. So it's kind of not, I suppose I kind of get that, but there you go. It's also got wireless charging built in, which is quite cool. So it's QI compatible. This is quite cool because it's kind of looks like that's where the industry's going. And hopefully we'll be able to see QI devices or QI devices, sort of how they're called, in a lot more places, and so it is, it's quite cool they've built that in there. 5.1 virtual surround made. Well, it says Google basically saying that they've worked with Fraunhofer. Now, Fraunhofer, I think that's how you pronounce it. Basically, they're a research company in Deutschland, in Germany, and they kind of do all sorts of stuff, but they do a lot of audio stuff as well. So they've kind of created this 5.1 virtual surround sound with Google, which is kind of quite good. They've actually included a research agency in with them. Now, whether or not they're actually that good, I don't know. I've done a bit of research and it doesn't look like that special, but hey, I mean, it's quite good they're working with actual proper researchers as opposed to just doing their own thing, because it means that actually they're doing something a little bit different, maybe, perhaps, I don't know. And it ships in the US from July 30th, so what's the date today? 27th today, so 3 days time. That'll be the Tuesday, so it'll ship on the Tuesday in America, which is quite good, actually. It's quite soon. The UK, we're not too sure yet. They've not actually said anything. We basically have to wait for that, which is kind of annoying, but hey ho, there you go. Now, comparing it to the old Nexus 7, I'll put on the screen some actual specs of what the old one is, what the new one is, and say pretty much the only thing that are new is the 5 megapixel camera, different processor, and a different display. And that display actually is also using scratch-resistant Corning glass as well, which is quite good. It basically means that it's not going to break so readily as, say, I don't know, an iPhone, because the iPhone screens, although they're supposed to have this shatter-resistant screen or scratch-resistant and all this other stuff, it breaks like nobody's business. So Android 4.3, this was the other thing that Google announced. So let's run through actually what the new things are for it. Multi-user restricted profiles is quite a cool little thing. Now, multi-user restricted profiles, try and say that 3 times fast after you had a glass of wine. They introduced it in 4.2, I think, and basically allows you to have multiple accounts. Now, this is quite good for several reasons. It provides, if you've got like one device that you use for work and home, it's really good because it allows you to have multiple profiles depending on what you're doing. So say, for instance, I take my Nexus 7 to work and I want to be able to use Hootsuite or Plume or something like that for the work that I do as a social media advisor and as a social media person. But when I come home, I want to be able to use my own accounts within Plume and stuff like that. And I know Plume supports multiple accounts, but say, for instance, Hootsuite, you want to use the corporate Hootsuite account and then perhaps your own personal Hootsuite account, or perhaps there's like another app that you can't use multiple accounts on. I'm just trying to think. Well, perhaps Facebook, like the Facebook app, for instance. You want to use the Facebook app at work for your work stuff, but you don't want to then, and then when you get home, you don't want to have to sign out again to all these different apps. So what you do is you create another profile. It then allows you to sign in and use those different profiles depending on where you are, which is really quite cool. And in enterprise, it's really good. So if, for instance, in an enterprise environment, if you had like a one device that maybe 5 of you share, you can sign into that device on your profile. It brings up your email, brings up everything else. And what Google are calling it is personal spaces, which is kind of quite. It's a really, really cool little thing. And I'm quite interested to actually try it out on my device and see actually how well it works in the real world. The other thing it introduces is parental controls. It allows you to actually sort of nail down things like in-app purchases with certain apps. It also allows you to block access to most of what the apps do in terms of location, in terms of using Wi-Fi and things like that, which is really quite an interesting concept. So another new feature is Bluetooth Smart. Now, Bluetooth Smart basically is a feature that allows you to use Bluetooth with less battery use. So this is really ideally suited for something like smartwatches. Now, smartwatches aren't. I don't think they're going to take off as much as people think they are. Smartwatches have been around for a while. I had a Sony Ericsson smartwatch. It was actually pretty good, like one of the first generation smartwatches. I'm actually picking it up for near as damn it nothing. It was like 16 quid on Amazon, and it was really quite cool. It was a really cool concept, but there was some really bad things wrong with it in terms of battery life. Was just ridiculous because it used Bluetooth. It would rinse your battery life on your phone and rinse the battery life on the actual device. It would barely last a day, and it wasn't really ideally suited for because Bluetooth is kind of quite old technology. It wasn't really suited for using it as a smartwatch. So Bluetooth Smart is kind of quite cool. So it means that when we see some more like things like the Pebble and stuff like that, when we see that stuff coming out, it means that we've got we're going to be using less battery life, and that's really, really good. We're also getting OpenGL ES 3.0, which basically provides us with better graphics rendering and funky visual improvements, such as just funky shiz. So better graphics, better visual representations of things like lens flare and all that other funky stuff that we really don't necessarily need in the game. It makes it look a lot more funkier, maybe a bit of HDR in there as well. And also at 1080p. Google did the demo they did on the Nexus 7. They did a 1080p demo of a few games and stuff and stuff like that. So that's quite cool. New DRM APIs. Now, basically, all this means is that we can get digital rights management. Means we can use a lot more DRM stuff on the device. So things like Netflix and other things that you've got different DRM APIs. It allows us to use them within Android, which is quite good. Annoyingly, DRM is a pain in the ass, but unfortunately, that's kind of what companies have to adhere to if they want anybody that's a member of the MPAA to give them their content. And then there's some little funky improvements in terms of the keyboard and the camera, but it's not necessarily much to shout right home about, so I'm not really going to cover that. There's a new Game Center, which actually is out now. You can download that for Android, which allows you to do cloud saves. It gives you achievements, leaderboards, multiplayers as well, which is really cool. It allows you to look at like your friends and stuff, which is alright. I don't actually play games on Android. As somebody mentioned on Twitter, Sebnati or whatever, Seb on Twitter said that, you need to play games. I don't play games on Android because I've got PC, and I haven't got the time to play games because I'm usually working. And I've got to, by the time I catch up on Twitter and everything else, it's just I haven't, Instagram, I haven't got the time to play games, so that's that. Not even on the toilet either. Then the last thing, which is really exciting, is Chromecast. Chromecast is, a lot of people are saying it's like Apple TV. It kind of is a little bit like Apple TV, but better than Apple TV because it costs a darn sight less than Apple TV. Basically, Chromecast, as the name suggests, kind of runs off Chrome. And what it basically allows you to do is it allows you to stream YouTube, it allows you to stream photos, and like other media from other apps. And this is really, really great for various different reasons. But the key thing is that it's great because it streams it from the cloud. So if you're watching, you can stream YouTube to it, and you plug it into your HDMI high lead. It's kind of you've seen those Android pen drive things you can get for TVs that you can get on like cheap Chinese knockoff things they have. Like you can get these like Android TVs that basically you plug into your HDMI port, you plug it into your USB port, and it gives you Android via a TV. It's kind of works like that, but it's kind of Google's own version of it, and it's actually obviously works better. So, say you're streaming YouTube, you can actually stream something to YouTube, and as opposed to it streaming through your device to the TV, it will stream it through the internet via the Chromecast, as opposed to going through your phone. So it means you save battery life. It also means you can watch YouTube videos, and then you can do something else on your device. So your device is not locked up, which is unlike Apple's like AirPlay, because AirPlay is a pain in the ass to actually A, get working for a start, and B, to actually get it to use, like you can for you to be able to use multiple stuff. So if you're streaming video, you pretty much can't do much else with it, which is kind of annoying. And it also works on Google Chrome for the desktop and Android devices, so that's kind of quite cool, really. And it's only going to be $35. That's not including tax. So in the UK, probably looking about 35 quid, I would have thought. Maybe about 25, 35 quid. It depends on what they decide. It might be a little bit more expensive because it depends on what they are intending. It depends on, obviously they might have different specs in different regions, so it depends, but it's probably going to be about 35, 40 quid maybe in the UK, which still isn't bad. I mean, for a device that's that small, it allows you to do a lot of funky things, especially with YouTube. It's really, really great. Although, admittedly, you can still do similar sort of things with something like a Raspberry Pi, which is 30 quid, so it's kind of up to you, I guess. But yeah, that's pretty much it, the whole roundup of Google's announcement. Let me know what you think about stuff in the comments below. And also let me know if you're actually going to get an Nexus 7, because the new Nexus 7, or even the old Nexus 7, because the old Nexus 7 is such a knockdown price. You can get it for like 150 quid, like the 16 gig version. Actually, I think the 32 gig version you can get for 180 quid. I think it's quite cheap, damn cheap actually, for what you can get. So yeah, let me know what you're actually thinking of it? Are you excited about it, etc., etc.? And hit me up on Twitter at AsYouChill. Apart from that, I shall catch you in a later video.